When we were young, 2024 all album plays, 57 records from the scene, by the scene, being played in full. And we here at the Emo Social Club, as part of the scene, are going through all of them.
We are the authorities of the scene, actually.
Scene authorities, Emo Social Club. And on today's episode, we are talking about Saosin's self-titled record, aka the Bug album, the Beetle. Lizzie, before we get into our thoughts and our takes and our opinions on this record, tell us a little bit about Saosin and this album, self-titled.
This was their debut album, came out September 26, 2006, via Capitol Records.
This whole history is so weird.
It doesn't make, I read it and I said, it's not really Capitol Records, is it? How did they, I mean, like, respectfully, how did they get on there?
So this band had existed and did an EP with Anthony Green, who later went on to Circa Survive, now with LS Dunes, a prolific singer. This is where he kind of got that start. So Saosin had a lot of attention on them when Anthony Green was in the band. Anthony Green leaves the band, decides to go and do other stuff. The band takes some time, but they had this EP. It was like very well known, very like there was a lot of attention on him. So the fact that like this was their first record at the time was very strange because like, why did they not release a record before this? Why was it just that EP? Why did it take so long? And why was it on a major label? At the time, for me, I was very attentive to AP Magazine and a lot of things that were happening in the scene at the time. Loved Circa Survive, big Circa Survive fan, big Anthony Green fan. I was following a little bit of this at the time, and now we have the benefit of hindsight where Cove, the new singer who's on this record, left the band. Anthony Green came back to the band. They did a whole reunion tour with Anthony Green playing the EP. I saw them at Riot Fest. It was fantastic. And then Anthony Green left the band again, and now Cove is back, and that's why they're playing this record at When We Were Young. So there's a lot of context here that we have now in 2024 that we did not have or may not have been written about a lot in 06, because that's like a very quick run of it. On all of Saosin's pages, they say member fluid.
Oh my God. From this album, the singles were Voices, Bury Your Head, You're Not Alone, It's Far Better to Learn. So there's actually quite a few singles off of this album.
Yeah.
They have sold 800,000 copies of this worldwide. Alt Press placed Voices in their top 46 post-hardcore songs of the 2000s. I couldn't find if it charted anywhere.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It doesn't sound like it necessarily really did.
Before we get into our thoughts on this record, make sure you are subscribed. We're almost there. We are in the home stretch. We only have like a certain number of records left, less than 20 at this point.
It's insane.
So we've either talked about your favorite record already or we are going to. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Drop a like if you like Saosin. Drop a like if you like these reviews, so that more people can see them, and make sure you're following along as we finally get to the end of this long journey that we've done throughout 2024. If you're enjoying the episodes, you can also check out longer versions of these episodes over on our Patreon, Emo Social Club over there, and you can become a member here on YouTube to see those longer episodes as well. It's a little bit more about us, a little bit more background, a little bit more funny jokes and takes that don't make it to the main episode here on YouTube. So, you know, check them out. Here are my takes on Saosin's self-titled record. As mentioned, I'm a big Anthony Green fan. I really liked 7 Years. That song is one of those ones where old emo fans are going to go, oh, you should play 7 Years. Like, that song rules. And it does. It was like early in those days of post-hardcore, having the like breakdowns, the screaming, the high-pitched vocals, all of the things that like Saosin brought to the table on that were what a lot of other bands did. It was super early in the time, so like the recordings were super like raw. It was one of those songs that just was part of that scene in the early days, the early 2000, 2001 era. And Saosin just like, it was only that song for so long. And like this record didn't come out until 06. And by that point, I was kind of like, I don't think this band is real. Like, there's so many other bands that are doing that sound now. And like, you kind of missed the time period, I guess, to me. And I always thought like Cove is really a good singer and there's a lot here. And I heard Voices and I heard You're Not Alone. So I was aware of Saosin. I just was never getting super into those two songs. And so I never listened to this record. It just never really struck me. I guess maybe because it was '06, it was like, this is kind of past the time when I'm just out of high school. I'm into college. There are other bands coming out that I'm a little bit more into, and this is not really the vibe of what I'm going for. I don't know. Maybe Voices and You're Not Alone just didn't hit me because they're a little bit more like ballady, more like this is for a younger crowd.
Yeah.
Like You're Not Alone is very much a song where it's like, I know you're sad. Don't be, or whatever. You're not alone. You're not alone in being sad. And like, that just didn't hit for me. Like at that age, I was like, no, I don't want that. I want either breakdowns or I want something that takes me out of that completely.
Yeah.
On this first listen, here's some things that I noticed with it and how it kind of like hit to me. Cove's vocals are the best part of this band. Cove can sing on this record. It sounds great. It's very similar in the same way, but doesn't sound exactly the same as Anthony Green. It feels like Saosin is about the vocals. Mm-hmm. Here's maybe another reason why I never got into them is I listened to an interview with AP Magazine way back in the day when they had a podcast, and they were interviewing Saosin and kind of talking about like, the member changes and like what they were going to do on this album and kind of promoting it. And they said, one of the main things about this band is the drums. And that's like one of the parts on this record where I'm like, it probably shouldn't be.
Oh,
the drums are really busy. There's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And like, you are the rhythm section. You are like doing some stuff here that just kind of pulls away from the things where the band is doing their best, which is the vocals, the big choruses, the rocking parts of it that you're kind of taken away from. On that note, with the vocals, the lyrics are very simple. They're very like, I don't want to say immature because I don't think that's, I don't want to pull away from what they're doing. It just certainly feels like they're not as deep as I would have thought. They're not as complicated as I would have thought. They're very straightforward. You don't have to think a lot about them on this, which I guess isn't a bad thing. It's like hard to make that a critique because there is a time and place for it. But for me, like listening to Saosin, I immediately thought like there's going to be a lot going on here. When you have a band that is this musically driven and musically talented, you feel like there should be more going on with the lyrics too. And there just isn't that much. And You're Not Alone is a very good example of that, where it is just simple. It's just straightforward. Voice is another simple. It's like there's nothing deeper than that on this record at all for me. Kind of giving a sense that like I didn't hate this record. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It didn't hit me with a lot that I wanted to come back to. But I will say there's some tracks on here that are very butt rock. There's some like real like radio rock, like Octane Radio, active rock songs on here at a time that's like kind of way ahead of that. This is an emo band doing what is radio rock earlier than a lot of other bands did it, and really tried to make that move towards what would eventually become this sound in radio. I think maybe because it's '06 to me is like, this wasn't the sound I was looking for because it was trying to go a more radio friendly route and trying to be more of that middle of the country rock versus like the emo side, the pop punk side, the post-hardcore side.
It's literally just hard and active rock at that point.
And this is setting a very like prominent example of how to do radio rock in the mid 2000s versus like what we heard from radio rock coming in more in like 2010s and later on.
Yeah.
So I think what they're doing here with that and sort of like shifting my thought process on this record to think of more of it that way. There were some songs that I liked more in that context versus thinking of this as like a post-hardcore band or an emo band or anything like that. But this was an emo band. This is a post-hardcore band. I listen to this as a post-hardcore band. So like, I like stuff that is not that on this record, but a lot of it just sounded very much like that, very samey, the same vibe throughout the record. The songs sound very similar. A lot of the vocal melodies sound similar. There's not a lot going on that like really takes things to a new level or to a different place when we're at that time where it's like, there's a lot of other records in the emo scene and the Warped Tour scene and all this stuff that I feel like this record was really shifting away from, and it probably shouldn't have. I feel like this record is very repetitive. I feel like the singles really stand out, even though they are very simple and repetitive. But I also think that this will do very well on a reunion and playing it out, because this is the vibe that is happening in radio and rock music now.
Yeah.
And it came before a lot of it. So, it can really stand that test of time in a completely different scene than the one we're talking about or expecting it when we were young. Obviously, there are people who are in the emo scene who love this band. And so, it's there for them as well. But for me, this does not sound like a post-hardcore emo band. This sounds like a radio rock band on this album. My top tracks from Saosin's self-titled record. I put Voices on here. I know it's a single. It's one of the more unique and standout tracks. But this is also one of the ones where there's a lot of busy drums during the verse. Mm-hmm. And so I try to not look at that as much, but be like, this is a very strong rock song on this record. This is something that leans more into that emo scene as well. And I think this one does it the most and the best as far as going back to that emo scene and that Warped Tour side of things that I really expected to hear from this record. Finding Home.
Ooh.
This one kind of bangs. This was the one song on the record where I'm listening to it and I was like, wait a minute.
This does something for your brain?
It did something. There's a groove to it in the chorus that really hit me. I was listening to it and I go, oh, wait a second. We're in. This song to me, Finding Home, was quite good. I think this is the best the rhythm section sounds on this album. I enjoyed the experience of hearing this. It stood out to me. It did not blend in with everything else. I'm going to say it has the most butt rock feel. It has the most butt rock sensibilities in it.
Let's go.
But it hits. It works for me. And taking everything else away from it, taking all the past, taking the Anthony Green out of it, this song stands on its own as a good song, a fun song, a groovy little number. And I think that this is one of those songs where it's you're going to do well with this song now versus what it would have been in 2006. Bury Your Head, banger.
Okay.
It is a banger. It also sounds more like butt rock. Don't have a better term for this. It's radio friendly rock.
What it is, nothing but rock.
Yeah, nothing but rock, brother. It's a little bit heavier. It's more rock based. Yeah, so similar as Finding Home and Voices. I know this was a song that they've had for a long time. I believe this is one that Anthony Green originally did with them. And then they re-recorded it for this album with Cove. I like this version. I don't have anything to compare it to necessarily. So I like this version of it. Comes right after You're Not Alone. So it's sort of take that moment down and then come right back up with Bury Your Head. I'm like, okay, I'm in. These tracks, I'm calling them butt rock, and there are probably some people who are massive fans of Saosin who are not going to like that take. But I mean, listen to radio rock and listen to Saosin. Put them right up next to each other. These are the same types of songs. These have the similar vibe to it to me. I'm sure if you take all that out, you're going to go, yeah, right. These are similar vibes to what I'm hearing on the radio from some of these more active rock bands now.
Well, I think if you reframe it that way, then
I'm not going to. It's butt rock.
No, I think that if you are reframing it as butt rock, hard and active rock.
Cheers, butt rock.
Where it's making it a little bit more digestible for you, and sometimes you just need to change the scope that you're looking at it at.
Open your mind. My least favorite track from Saosin's self-titled record. The problem of how repetitive it is that there's a lot of stuff that just blended together for me. I don't really remember a lot of the other songs on the record besides what I already knew going in or the ones that I mentioned as my favorites. Mm-hmm. All the rest to me, you could say, yeah, that song was there. It's sure was, I bet. Great. But I don't remember any of them right now. If I looked at them, I might go, oh, okay, yeah. But none of them stood out enough. The lyrics are not stand out enough to keep my attention. There's not a lot going on in one song that isn't happening in another one that is objectively better on this record. There's nothing that another song does that Voices doesn't do better. I don't know. There's a lot of filler here. It feels like it's hard to pick one out of that. I've talked a lot about how You're Not Alone is just a very simple, basic song to me. Mm-hmm. I know that song means a lot to people. It used to be a big skip for me all the time if it came up on shuffle, because obviously, you put on emo songs and it's here you go. You like this one. It's
It's do I though?
So I skipped it a lot. I skip it less now. I'm more open-minded to hearing it now. It's definitely the standout for my critiques on this record. The issues I have with this record, You're Not Alone is one of the songs that I have the most critiques about, but there's nothing bad. There's nothing awful on the record. It's just boring. It doesn't really stand out a lot. This is your first record. You had the member changes. Saosin has 3 records. They've been around since 2001.
That's crazy.
They have 3 records. They have a bunch of EPs. But with the member changes they've had and all that, like they don't have a large catalog. They're working on their 4th record now with Cove rejoining the band. So of the records they have 2 with Cove and 1 with Anthony Green. Maybe they just haven't written a lot of songs. Maybe they just haven't done a lot together. And maybe like in the time that they've taken between writing all this music, you know, they're not really experimenting and pushing those boundaries a lot. But I do feel like because you already had the Anthony Green experience before this, what were you not doing in that time that you could have been doing to make more variety on this and more standout tracks? I don't think Saosin is a bad band. I think that they are very talented members of the band, but I do find that like there's like something about it there that's like you had time and you didn't do it to make a lot of songs on this record.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about it. I don't want to be mean. I didn't hate it. It's just this record was just not stand out to me.
It's just like a middle of the road. If it's
middle of the road,
it's
man.
there, it's there.
Yeah, just stand out. Yeah.
Nothing to really write home about for you.
I'm definitely not writing home about any of this. I'd be like, you heard voices, you're good, man. Move on.
Here are my thoughts about Saosin's self-titled album, aka the Bug album. So I've seen Saosin before. And I completely forgot about this because I saw him on like the very last Taste of Chaos tour in like 2016, I think it was. And it was down at like Northerly Island in Chicago.
Yeah.
And like they put on a good performance. I couldn't tell you who was the lead singer. I don't remember. I do not remember. Knowing in general that they've gone through different singers and it seems like they just go through like different members too. I don't think that this is a band that ever has fully formed into what it's supposed to be. And listening to this, it was very color by numbers. This is, you plug it in here, color in this spot. It says 1, it's red, 2, it's blue. You made an emo-ish album, and that's fine. It does what it needs to do. It got a lot of people's attention, and I can understand it's catchy with the songs that are catchy. And with the sound, it does fit a little bit into that time, and it works for some people. And I never really gave much thought to Saosin in general. I kind of just forget that they're there because it's just, I know one person who really talked about and knew this band in my entire life. And I talk with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in general. So it never really crossed my mind. I see the Bug album. I'm like, yeah, that's the Bug album. Awesome. And I move on with my day. So listening to this in full for the first time, it didn't really leave much of an impression on me. I think with the historical context of it, I'm happy that they were able to get it together and put out an album. That's awesome.
I'm happy they did this.
I'm happy you did it.
Good for you, man.
I think Cove's vocals are great and they really do stand out, but they need to figure out what they're going to do to really level up his vocals. And I haven't listened to any other Saosin album, so I don't know what they sound like. I never listened to it with Anthony Green, so I don't know what that sounds like. I think that this was like a valiant effort in order to keep that record label going and keeping it. I get the bag. It was just fine. Not anything that I'm going to write home about. But I think there's people out there who do. Home. That's great.
No one's writing home about this record at all.
No. Here are my top songs from Saosin's Bug album, aka self-titled. It's far better to learn. I really did like that opener. It's really bouncy. It's aggressive. I do like the guitar work that's on here. It's just a song that I would definitely associate with that era of emo and alt music. So it just makes sense. It stands out. It sets up what I thought the album was going to be a little bit more so, but it also doesn't. Because with the lyricism, it's really easy, straightforward, which is fine. But I thought at a certain point, maybe it would kind of build up a little bit more, be more intricate with the lyricism, and it really wasn't. And that's okay. Not all bands have to be super diverse with it. It is what it is. Finding Home, and when you said it sounds like a butt rock, because I was re-listening to it, I'm like, why do I really like this? Even though it's a little slow, that makes sense. It sounds like butt rock.
It's got that damn groove.
Yeah, I was like, I could, and I also thought about this in a different way too, because I kept re-listening to it because it was bothering me why I couldn't figure out why I really liked it or like really place what was keeping me going. This is a song I could definitely see that could have been a single, arguably, if you marketed it as a butt rock band.
Where you placed it, yeah.
Yeah. And the other one was Some Sense of Security. The intro reminds me of a bunch of like other songs, mostly The Used.
Yeah.
Which, like, I got that because I'm like, oh, yeah, like, I like to use. Maybe I'll like this. I think that this is a good wrap up to the album. It introduces some background vocals as well that kind of make it a little bit more like oomph. It oomphs it up a little bit. It's not good, bad, or otherwise. It's just, it didn't hit like some other albums hit, but it's not terrible. It's not god awful.
When we've heard some of these other records, it's like there's clearly the singles, and then the rest is just kind of there to make an album, because this was the time when you would sell albums. So it's like, you know, we're saying the reviews are there for the value of what you're getting. I'm going to tell you whether or not this is worth your $16 or whatever it is. And because of the fact that on radio and then on iTunes and all that, it's like mostly singles based. It's like, let's just write, you know, one or two songs that make sense. And then like the rest of it will be songs we can play live. But if we have a larger catalog, maybe we don't add those songs to the catalog. We just write some stuff. And it's clearly not as good as the singles. You have the record label going like, you got to give me a single, like to Blink-182 or whatever. And they go and they write First Date or whatever the fuck it is. And it's a very different scene now. But there are obviously plenty of bands that could write like full records, like full meaningful packages of an album. But like listening to this, it definitely feels like, no, you wrote the singles and then you kind of didn't really have anything else.
You just put it in, you said, oh man, I got to finish this entire record.
We need this many songs.
Here's a bunch of different songs. And I think too, again, with that, I don't know if they've ever had a clear vision for this band. I don't know these people. So maybe you did. I don't know, homie. Sorry.
It feels like they don't.
That's the thing. And there's so many bands too that we listen to that have had a rotating cast of like different members. But this, you lose your lead singer before you even put out your first full album. You go back and forth throughout the years. It just sounds like it's like a project band that got signed. And it's still like a project band that nobody really knows what to do. Like they do it on the weekends or at night. And again, that's fine. It's nowhere and otherwise. But I feel this album could have been a lot more like strong. I feel if they literally figured out how to take it from basically a blueprint to actually building it as like a real place.
Yep.
My least favorite song from Saosin's Bug album, self-titled. I never wanted to. It was there. It didn't really just catch my attention. It sounded like every generic alternative song that you probably would have heard on the radio during that time, which kind of goes back to what we said earlier, where if we played this on like a hard active rock radio station during that time or even now, I would say you're one of the 5 other bands that's already done this. Like, good for you. Happy you're also getting like, you know, radio revenue and royalties. Yeah. Awesome. What distinguishes you? It doesn't do anything. If they wanted to market themselves even as like an alt rock band that would have been on the radio primarily during that time, and or a hard and active rock band, and they went that way instead of saying like, let's do emo post-hardcore, I think you would have been 10 times better.
Those are our thoughts on Saosin's self-titled record. But we are not the only one who had thoughts on this record. So if you disagree with us, we got some other thoughts. We got some other opinions. I went to Amazon. Lizzie went to some critics from The Time, and we're going to read you some of the other thoughts of people who reviewed this record. This review is from Amazon.com, written by StormG94.
Okay.
Now, you know, we could try to find some different types of reviews, positive and negative. This one is a positive review.
Love it.
5 stars. Title of the review is Buy This Now. This is a review from 2018. I listen to anything from rock, alternative, pop, metal, country, rap, R&B, hip-hop, electronic, jazz, swing, what name you.
The swing.
No one listens to swing. You're wrong.
No, I know people who listen to swing.
Those aren't real people. You made them up for the purpose of this review, and it's this guy. It's hard for me to stick with any one genre, much less any one band, even more or less a single CD for any length of time. However, this CD, just wow. I've had this in my lineup for 10 plus years and I can't skip a single song. In fact, I almost always have to listen to the whole album anytime they pop up in my randoms. Drums stand out the most to me, which almost never happens in anything I listen to. Vocals are a close second, and just by a margin. Not many albums in my repertoire can be played from front to back without a skip or two, and this just excels. Seriously, I would be happy to be buried with this album.
Oh, wow. All right.
This next review is from Tacoma Boy.
Oh, I wonder where he's from. That's so crazy.
Crazy enough, Phoenix, Arizona.
Are you dead ass?
No. The review is titled, Glad They Finally Got This One Out of the Way. 4 stars.
Oh.
I know, it's a little misleading. This is from 2006, so the year it came out. Maybe the pressure of putting out a quality LP after building a faithful following over several years caused the boys to compromise a little. Perhaps the major label pressured them to change a little. But overall, this LP is still superior to most bands in the same genre today. First off, I think the LP would have been better if it was self-produced. Bo did a fine job before. The producer they went with tends to elevate Cove's vocals above the guitars most of the time. The vocals are great, but Saosin fans want to hear those shredding guitars. My worst complaint about the production is the horrible additional synthesized crap at the end of I Never Wanted To. That song was butchered. Obviously, Bury Your Head was unnecessary, but whatever. The good. In my opinion, the first and last songs on the albums are the highlights, with plenty of good stuff in between. A couple songs are going to be disliked by most early fans, but the album is a definite worthy addition to your music collection. Hopefully, with the first full-length album out of the way, the guys can relax and give us some more classic Saosin rock. Recommendation. If you don't own it already, go out and buy Saosin's EP Translating the Name. If you're a fan of Anthony Green's singing, then check out Circa Survive's album Juturna. It's a lot different than Saosin, but great alternative rock with awesome vocals, of course. And I do recommend Juturna because I like that album quite a bit. This last one is by Pancake Repairman.
Okay.
2 stars. The title of this review is Please Enter a Title for Your Review.
Wow.
From 2006.
Love it.
A pretty unprecedented example of a band who have gathered a fervent underground scene following while basically playing bland commercial alt-rock. Their first EP sounded like an emo-fied version of Linkin Park. Their second sounded virtually exactly like Hoobastank, and yet all these scenester kids who scoff at those bands were all over it. The best reference point for what they're doing on this debut album they finally got around to recording after 2 EPs with a 2-year gap between them is Yellowcard's latest. But it could just as easily be 100 other faceless, overproduced bands, except for the odd way one drum is mixed so much louder than the rest.
Damn. It seems like what's consistent is like the mixing.
I guess. Also, with Anthony Green, it sounded nothing like Linkin Park. I know you don't have the reference on that. I do. Emo-fied Linkin Park is not what it sounded like with Anthony Green. So that's crazy. Second of all, I don't think this band sounds like Hoobastank either. No,
I mean, like we've said that it has butt rock undertones, but it's not. We're not saying it's full blown.
No.
If they decide to go in that direction,
they might do well.
They might do. Again, if they went to whatever the generic alt rock was at that time, would have done well. Same thing if they went the direction of butt hard active rock, would have done well. I don't know what happened here. So this one, there was not a lot of critic reviews for this at all. So I was we're at scraps. All right.
Interesting.
So one that I found was from, I'm assuming just somebody who just wanted to start a blog and like write about music. Good for you. Love that for you.
Tight. Good.
I believe Saosin's self-titled full-length debut album to be an example of post-hardcore excellence and a record that shaped the direction of the genre for the next decade.
Yeah.
Others disagree, citing the album as an example of Saosin's squandered potential. Instead of using the next 800 words to defend my position and rehash one of the most tired debates in scene history, I'm simply going to tell you how this album has deeply and profoundly impacted my life. We're not going to do this. Sorry, homie. I condensed it down.
Yeah.
Love that for you. I love that for you. Hope you're doing well. I believe this album to be one of the great rock records of our generation, and the beauty and the craft of this record is part of what makes it so important to me. But even if you disagree with my thoughts on the album's merits, we all have those albums we go to when we need a lift. Saosin may not have lived up to everyone's hype, but I'm eternally grateful that every note landed where it did. So it sounds like, if you are a Saosin fan, you may just be very aware.
I don't know, man. The sound changed so much. Like, even going into this, like, knowing the 2 songs, I'm like, it's not going to hit the same way that, like, 7 Years did or anything with Anthony Green on it did. So, like, I'm sure a lot of people had the exact same experience. I think if you like this record, it's more likely you never heard the Anthony Green thing first. It's more likely you heard this as your first take. And so you have no previous context to bring into this record. That's my only way that I'm like, there are people who like this record more than the old shit, because like you must have just not heard the old shit until after this.
Yeah. The next review that we have is from Punk News by Brian with a Y.
Don't ask me why. Get it out of there.
Anthony who? While Anthony Green left Saosin and would go on to form Circa Survive, Saosin found another talented vocalist to fill the void left by Green. And that replacement, Cove Reber, easily lifts the band out of the potential pitfall of being labeled off as just another emo band. While Reber's singing occasionally sounds extremely similar to 30 Seconds to Mars vocalist Jared Leto.
Uh-oh.
Reber completely nails his notes, and his dynamic and emotional voice is quite impressive. However, it's not just the vocals that make an album, and Saosin managed to keep themselves at least one step ahead of the game with some stronger melodies and efficient songwriting. Saosin's first full length is easily the band's make or break album. It's full of enough guitar harmonies, melodies, and impressive vocal work and balladry that anyone into any kind of melodic emo rock music should take notice. However, those wishing for more to come out of these adept musicians will be disappointed in the rather repetitive nature of this release. Even with its flaws, Saosin has managed to craft a strong release that will probably impress its listeners. It's not perfect, but then again, nothing is.
I guess there's some parts where I could hear 30 Seconds to Mars. It's a similar era. It's a similar time period, but only because 30 Seconds to Mars was like massive radio rock at the time. I don't think this is as good as 30 Seconds to Mars' Beautiful Lie was. So we have that going for it. Those are our thoughts. Those are critics' thoughts. But there's one thought, nay, one question left to answer here. Should you see Saosin's self-titled record, The Bug Album, in full at When We Were Young 2024? I think there's like a couple songs you can check out. You're Not Alone comes at the end if you want to go by and like swing by to hear that song. And if you like them, Bury Your Head comes right after it. So like that could be good. There's not a lot for me personally that's going to draw me to this stage. There are plenty of records that we've heard for the first time on this that like all of a sudden I'm like way in for it. And I'm dedicated to being at that stage. This is not one of them. I don't mind it if I hear it, but I'm certainly not going to be seeking this out. I think that they can probably perform it very well. I've seen Saosin with Anthony Green. I can't assume that they're going to be a bad set. It's going to be badly performed. Yeah, I won't be there, I don't think. I think I'm going to be at something else for sure. This record just isn't for me. I've heard tell, maybe, since Anthony Green is going to be there. I don't think he's going to join them on stage.
He'll just be there from the distance like, good job.
But, I mean, if there was ever a set that Saosin was doing that was not an album play of this, and Anthony Green and Cove shared and they played songs together, I could be very into that.
Yeah.
I could be very into that. This album in full, no thank you, I guess.
I don't think I will be there. If you really like Saosin, obviously go. I'm not going to tell you not to. This just isn't an album that's worth it for me personally to miss any other act. If it's there in the background while I'm waiting for the act I'm seeing primarily to set up, cool. But I'm not going to be there. You know, you guys can have fun over there. I think a collab could be really cool between Anthony Green and Cove, but who knows if that happens. I also, again, I'm not like super attached to either vocalists or any of their other projects they have done. So I would just be like, that's a cool thing in scene history that happened. Good for all of you guys. Have fun over there. I'm over here.
Good for you.
And that's it.
Enjoy your day off. That's where we'll be. Probably not at this stage, but where will you be? What do you think about this review? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are we right? Are we wrong? Let us know in the comments. Do not be mean, but do let us know. Tell us what you think. If you enjoy this review, if you enjoy our other reviews, please subscribe. Please be notified when the new reviews come up. You will be able to be notified when we have the remainder of the reviews. We're almost there, home stretch. And make sure to check out the playlist of all the other reviews that we have done so far. If you'd like to get more of our thoughts, our opinions on this record or any of the other records from when we were young, make sure to become a member here on YouTube or over on our Patreon at Emo Social Club over there. It is $1. You get more videos, a single dollarino, and you can see more of us, more of our takes, more of our thoughts. Maybe we said something that was clipped out that was actually very nice, and you would love to know and find out that we said something nice about this record that you love and we didn't. But until When We Were Young, until Saosin, until Self-Titled, until The Bugs, we'll see you there.